This is Conrad Roy, and I'm going to talk to you about social anxiety. Social anxiety, depression, it's controlling me. And there's people that love me. I have a great mom, great dad. But I'm so depressed.
We spent the day walking the beach, and we had a conversation, and I asked him about school, and he's like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. And I said, you know, don't worry about it. Everything is gonna be okay.
It was a nice day out with the family.
Nothing to give any hint of what was to come later in the day.
There was no indication anything was going on.
I've created a monster out of myself the past few years because of my depression. Racing thoughts, suicidal thoughts.
Do you remember when is the last time you saw your brother?
He was like going out the door. I thought he was just going to his friend's house.
You got up in the morning, and how did you know he hadn't come home?
He wasn't there, and we just like couldn't find him.
This is not like Conrad not to come home. Then they found his body and around 5:30 in the afternoon. And he died in his truck. Carbon monoxide poisoning. I will live with this forever, the pain.
Right away, we heard from investigators that the medical examiner found that it was a suicide. It wasn't until they started looking at his phone that they realized that there was something else going on here. Because on that phone were hundreds and hundreds of texts from Michelle Carter to Conrad Roy urging him to end his life.
You can't think about it. You just have to do it. You said you were gonna do it. Like, I don't get why you aren't.
And Michelle Carter admittedly said, do it. She was kind of making fun of him for not taking his own life.
I thought you really wanted to die, but apparently you don't. I feel played and just stupid. You're going to have to prove me wrong, because I just don't think you really want this.
And she kept pressuring him to do it.
You're ready and prepared. All you have to do is turn the generator on, and you be free and happy. No more pushing it off. No more waiting. There was one point where he actually got out of the truck and changed his mind.
Yeah, he was scared.
And she told him to go back in the truck.
Yes.
Carter charged with involuntary manslaughter.
She faces up to 20 years in prison.
This is totally out of left field. I coached Michelle. I know her as a good kid.
I don't believe that she has a conscience. She knew exactly what she was doing and what she said.
Hang yourself, jump off a building, stab yourself. I don't know. There's a lot of ways.
And it's the texts that become the weapon.
How could she cause a death when she was 35 miles away?
In these circumstances, this is almost akin to loading the gun and handing it over. Who knows? Who knows when you have your hand on the trigger when you're sending a text?
It's not realistic. What's going in my head that keeps on piling and piling and piling.
1 month before 18-year-old Conrad Roy took his own life, when the minds of many teens wander to carefree summer days, Conrad's thoughts were more serious, introspective.
I need to be comfortable in my skin.
Sitting at his computer in his home in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, Conrad recorded his thoughts on coping with his depression.
I need to relax. I really do.
He wanted to excel. He was just wanted to be this like great person, but in my eyes,
Conrad's mother, Lynn, explains that her son could be his own toughest critic.
he was rough on himself. He really struggled with just disappointing, I think, myself and his dad.
And the sooner I like myself, the better I'm going to be.
Lynroy thought her son was getting better.
I do have a lot going for me.
He was getting professional help and on an antidepressant, Celexa. He had been licensed to be a tugboat captain like his dad.
That's a huge accomplishment, to be a captain.
Had just graduated high school, and college with a scholarship was on the horizon.
And he was doing everything that was positive, that was, looking towards his future.
But on July 12, 2014, Conrad drove to a parking lot and, using a gasoline-powered water pump, sat in his pickup truck as it filled with carbon monoxide, knowingly inhaling the deadly fumes, killing himself. All the while, his friend Michelle Carter, then 17, was encouraging Conrad from more than 30 miles away on her phone to take his own life.
I don't understand why you would want someone that was so beautiful inside and out, that had so much, that was such a kind person, to die.
How do you describe what this young woman did?
I cannot. Only she can.
The intersection of the lives of Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy has left a trail of heartbreak and questions about the circumstances that led to such a tragic death.
He's one of the kindest persons. He grew up very sensitive, very humble and kind.
Happy child.
Very happy. Many pictures of him smiling, laughing, until he became a teenager, and I don't know if it was the hormones. He just, became anxious.
Conrad was the oldest child in the family with two sisters, Morgan and Camden. Lynn and Conrad's father separated when Conrad was 16, and their divorce hit him especially hard.
I think he was just more worried about me. That's what boys do. They worry about their moms a lot.
Conrad would confide in his friend Ariana Taylor as they spent hours walking along the water.
He wasn't able to explain it to me in a way that I could understand, so he kind of just described it as a darkness and how there would be times where he just kind of wanted to isolate himself from everybody.
Conrad's anxiety and self-doubt had troubled Lynn since he was 16.
He started having trouble sleeping, and we got him treated. And then he had his first suicide attempt a year after, the age of 17.
Conrad had overdosed on acetaminophen.
I worked in a psychiatric hospital, and I never imagined that one of my children would have those feelings.
Do you think he really intended to kill himself at that point?
He did contact a friend.
That friend was Ariana.
He told me that he was really sick and that his mom had just left and that he wanted her to come back.
Ariana immediately got in touch with Conrad's parents, who brought him to the hospital.
He told me, Mom, I will never do that again. He was sorry. And I was sorry as well that he felt that way.
The fact that he wanted you to call his mother, what does that say to you?
It just says that he was calling out for help, that he didn't actually mean what he was doing, but he really needed help, and that this was the only way he kind of thought that he would really get help.
And that help seemed to be working.
He actually was getting a lot better. He told me about how he was going out. He was going to, the high school parties and just hanging out with everybody. I was like, that's amazing.
Michelle Carter was another friend of Conrad's. They met in 2012 while both were vacationing in Florida. Conrad and his sisters were visiting relatives who happened to know Michelle.
How would you describe Michelle? Friendly?
Yeah, she's really friendly. She always made Conrad laugh.
As it turned out, Michelle lived just a few towns over from the Roys in Massachusetts, and the relationship continued after the vacation. But while Michelle called Conrad her boyfriend, his family says the two rarely saw each other, and like so many teens, their interactions were mostly over text messages. Had your son ever mentioned Michelle Carter?
Yes. After they met in Florida, I met her 2013 at his baseball game, and that was the only time I ever met her. Second time was at his wake.
Michelle and Conrad shared something in common that Lynn did not know. Michelle had her own struggles, including an eating disorder, and both teens at times took antidepressants.
You know, probably the attraction was they both had their issues.
Softball coach Ed McFarland has known Michelle Carter and her family for a decade. The Michelle he knows is an ideal teammate.
I've never seen her do a mean thing. I've never seen her be mean.
Michelle's high school yearbook paints a picture of an active, well-liked student, one voted class clown, and most likely to brighten your day. But that would not be how her actions would be described on the last day of Conrad's life. That day started out seemingly happy for Conrad, spending time with his family. That morning on the 12th, what was his mood like?
It was fine. He wanted to, go to the beach with the girls.
While there, Camden at one point noticed her brother sitting alone, texting. Did you know who he was texting with?
No.
Now you think he was texting with Michelle Carter.
Yeah.
But you didn't know that at the time. And what was his demeanor?
I don't know, he kind of seemed like anxious, like when he was like texting.
Conrad then took his sisters out for ice cream, where his mood seemed to lift. And when you think back on that, would you have ever guessed there was anything wrong that afternoon?
No.
After going home, Conrad left at about 6 p.m., telling his mother he was going to see a friend.
And I asked him if he was going to be back for dinner, and he said he didn't think so, and that was the last words that he spoke to me.
It was July 12, 2014, the heart of summer in New England. Conrad Roy had headed out in his pickup truck around 6 p.m. As the evening passed, Lynn checked to see when he'd be home.
And I texted him, I don't know, before I went to bed, maybe around 10:30, 11, and then I texted him again in the middle of the night.
Conrad didn't respond. Still, Lynn figured everything was okay. She believed he had beaten back much of his anxieties. That night, Conrad's sister Camden unexpectedly heard from Michelle Carter, that 17-year-old who had battled her own mental health issues and lived about an hour away. How surprised were you that you suddenly got a text from Michelle?
And I thought she was just like his friend, but in the text, she said, like, we're boyfriend and girlfriend now. And I was just like, I looked at my mom, I was like, they are?
Whether teenage love or something else, Michelle was sending out the word. Had anyone heard from Conrad Roy? And what did she text you exactly?
She was like, hey Camden, like, do you know where your brother is?
Was that unusual for him not to come home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was not like him at all.
It was sunrise and still not a word.
So in the morning, I went to by Ariana's house, and he wasn't there.
And so that's when I began to search. Where is he? What happened?
We went by Dad's house. There's no sign of him. Maybe an hour later, I felt like this rush go through my body that I've never felt in my life. And I felt at that point that he wasn't with me.
On the afternoon of July 13th, police found him inside his pickup truck, parked at the local Kmart, his cell phone right next to him.
And he died in his truck. Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Like, got in the car and my mom was just like crying, like the most I ever seen her cry. And she was like, he's gone. And like, she was just like, your brother's gone.
It still hurts just as much as it did then, doesn't it?
I will live with this forever, the pain.
I don't get why it happened. Why did it happen? Why did it happen to him?
And Michelle seemed to take Conrad's death as hard as anyone. Once again, a text was her choice of communication, this time to Lynn. I am so very sorry. Conrad meant so much to me. No one questioned the suicide until cops got a hold of Conrad Roy's phone. It would prove to be an investigation like no other. No gun, no knife, no crucial DNA in this case. Only this, a trail of words, starting with those on the cell phone, messages with Michelle Carter.
And once investigators found this dialogue, they knew that there was something else up. And they wanted to get to the bottom of it.
Former Boston Herald legal columnist and 48 Hours consultant Bob McGovern.
And so this thing turned from a suicide investigation into a homicide investigation.
Michelle seemed to be encouraging Conrad not to live, but to die. Texts flew between the two of them for more than a week, right up to the moment he took his own life. I'm determined. I'm happy to hear that. When you get back from the beach, you gotta do it. No more thinking. Yes, no more thinking. You need to just do it. But now, with Conrad Roy dead, Michelle seemed devastated, acting as if his death was a total surprise.
When it came to the funeral, she sat up close to kind of where the family area was. I always described her as seen as the grieving widow. She was just constantly like sobbing.
And 2 months later, Michelle even held a fundraiser to honor Conrad in her town of Plainville. That fall, investigators interviewed Michelle Carter at her high school.
Do you think you had contact with him that day?
I think so.
But Michelle's story was riddled with holes, and police weren't buying it. They poured through her cell phone. Her texts ranged from urgent to ominous, like one sent to her friend Samantha Boardman on July 12th at 8:02 p.m., just minutes after police believed Conrad killed himself. He just called me. I heard moaning like someone was in pain, and he wouldn't answer when I said his name. That text was followed by another. I think he just killed himself. Michelle was texting her friend, but what she wasn't doing was calling for help. And there was at least one more text found on Conrad's phone that now seems telling. Only moments before he died, Michelle asked him this: "Did you delete the messages?" Police would extract more than 1,000 deleted text messages between Conrad and Michelle. Some showed his fear and reluctance to take his life on the very day he died. I don't know, I'm freaking out again. I do want to, but like I'm freaking out for my family. But even as Conrad panicked and considered abandoning his plan to die, Michelle egged him on. She described it to her friend Samantha that September in this text. "Sam, his death is my fault. Like, honestly, I could have stopped him. I was on the phone with him, and he got out of the car because it was working, and he got scared, and I effing told him to get back in." The road to justice would be complicated. Massachusetts has no law against encouraging or assisting suicide. And Michelle was miles away when Conrad died.
People don't realize in our generation, texting does a lot. It's like having the person right there in front of you when you're texting somebody.
And the Supreme Court of Massachusetts seems to agree. In the summer of 2016, the court ruled that even though Michelle was an hour away when Conrad Roy died, she had a virtual presence that night in that pickup truck. It's a controversial legal theory born out of a digital world. And so nearly 3 years later, Michelle Carter will stand trial in this courtroom for involuntary manslaughter. Michelle's attorneys, fearing how the text would play, advised her to waive her right to a jury trial. She put her fate in the hands of veteran judge Lawrence Moniz.
Are you doing that of your own free will, knowingly and voluntarily?
Yes.
See more of Michelle Carter's texts to Conrad Roy on Facebook at 48 Hours.
She assisted and devised and advised and planned his suicide.
Inside this Massachusetts courtroom, Michelle Carter, now 20 years old, looks more like a prep school student than a criminal defendant.
And on July 12, 2014, as his truck was filling with carbon monoxide, he was scared. He got out. It was the defendant on the other end of the phone who ordered him back in, then listened for 20 minutes as he cried in pain, took his last breath, and died.
The alleged weapon in this case? Michelle Carter's own words.
What she did, in theory, according to the prosecutors, is she recklessly caused Conrad Roy's death.
The state's case revolves around Michelle's chilling text messages to Conrad as he was apparently having second thoughts the day he took his life.
The defendant texted Conrad, "You can't think about it, you just have to do it. You said you were going to do it. I don't get why you aren't."
And then there was this. 10 days before he died, Michelle sent him this text message assuring him not to worry about his family's feelings. Yeah, they'll probably blame themselves for a while, but they will get over it and learn to accept it, a notion that baffles and upsets Conrad's mother.
I think she needs to be held responsible for her actions because she knew exactly what she was doing.
Lynn Roy testified that on the last day of his life, Conrad was in a good frame of mind.
He was eating tortilla chips and guacamole on the way to the beach.
In July of 2014, did he ever mention he wanted to harm himself?
No. I knew he was a little depressed, but I thought he was doing great.
But prosecutors contend that Michelle and her incessant texting had immense influence over Conrad, even though Michelle was more than 30 miles away from him when he took his life. That her virtual presence caused him to do it.
She helped him devise a plan to kill himself using a combustion engine to poison himself with carbon monoxide gas.
Michelle sent Conrad this text message: "I'm not going to sleep until you are in the car with a generator on."
Your Honor, this case is a suicide case. It is not a homicide.
But defense attorney Joseph Cataldo painted a very different picture.
The evidence of the texting is overwhelming that Conrad Roy was on this path to take his own life for years. Michelle Carter was not present. Michelle Carter had been texting with him. She did not physically see this individual for over 1 year.
The defense brings up Conrad's acetaminophen overdose when he was 17 and claims he had been suicidal for years, in part because of his parents' divorce, and he had a contentious relationship with his father. And if the judge is considering Michelle's text messages, he should look at all the messages between the teenagers. Even up to a month before Conrad's death, Michelle seemed like a concerned friend, trying to help a socially awkward and emotionally fragile Conrad. On June 19th, Michelle texts Conrad, "Are you 100% positive you're never going to commit suicide? Be honest with me. Do you think about doing it?" "No, I'm not." In other messages, she talks about wanting to take him to a therapist or a mental health hospital. But on July 1st, 11 days before his suicide, texts between Michelle and Conrad took a sinister turn. Prosecutors let the words tell the story.
She talked him out of his doubts, point by point. She assured him that his family would understand why he did it. She researched logistics.
Michelle had been sending Conrad suggestions on how to kill himself for weeks. Hanging is painless and takes like a second if you do it right. But what would drive anyone to send a text like that? Prosecutors say Michelle was desperate for friends and attention. And she got it when she talked about her suicidal boyfriend. Just days before he died, she sent texts to girls she wanted to be close with in an effort to get their attention and sympathy.
Lexi Evelyn, please.
Pretending Conrad was missing.
Do you remember getting a message about Conrad being missing?
Yes.
He's missing, like they don't know where he is.
Prosecutors say Conrad still being alive presented a problem for Michelle. She could be exposed as a liar. So it was important he kill himself. On July 12th, the night he did take his life, Conrad drove to a Kmart parking lot and texted Michelle, "Leaving now. Okay, you can do this. Okay, I'm almost there." That was the last text Conrad ever sent to anyone. But there was also a 46-minute phone call. Michelle called him. She was the last person to speak with him. After that call ended, Michelle texted her friend Samantha.
I'm going to ask you to read that text message, please, aloud.
Sam, he just called me and there was a loud noise like a motor and I heard moaning like someone was in pain and he wouldn't answer when I said his name. I stayed on the phone for like 20 minutes and that's all I heard.
Then, 27 minutes later, Michelle sent Samantha another text message.
I think he just killed himself.
Prosecutors say Michelle, within hours, began building a virtual alibi. Knowing that he was likely dead, she began acting like a concerned friend, sending Conrad this text message. "I'm scared. Are you okay? I love you. Please answer." Michelle showed little emotion at the trial. Her defense relies on this psychiatrist, Peter Bregan, to explain her behavior, even though he was not treating Michelle at the time. He testifies that she was involuntarily intoxicated by an antidepressant drug she started taking 3 months earlier, Celexa.
She was enmeshed in a delusion where she's thinking that it's a good thing to help him die.
But prosecutors completely dismiss that theory.
She does not tell the Roy family about being on the phone with Conrad the night before, does she? His dead body is in a car 24 hours, and she withholds that information.
Inexplicably, Michelle sent more than 80 texts to Conrad after he died. In some, she even apologizes for not saving him. But it wasn't just Conrad she texted. The prosecution is hoping the judge pays particular attention to this text that she sent to her friend Samantha a week after Conrad's body was discovered. They have to go through his phone and see if anyone encouraged him to do it on text and stuff. They read my messages with him, I'm done. His family will hate me, and I could go to jail.
Her actions, Your Honor, on July 12, 2014, caused the death of Conrad Roy. They were reckless, and she knew it.
According to the prosecution, Michelle Carter helped put Conrad Roy in his grave.
It was a felony, and she caused serious bodily harm.
According to the defense, she didn't know what she was doing.
Good morning, Your Honor.
She was psychotic, delusional, involuntarily intoxicated from taking the antidepressant Celexa.
Michelle Carter underwent an involuntary intoxication in June and July.
To prominent child and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Harold Koplowitz, that makes no sense at all. Though not a witness in this case, he says those drugs, called SSRIs, are remarkably safe.
They don't make you delusional. They don't make you psychotic.
And they don't make you intoxicated.
They don't make you drunk.
Dr. Koplowitz believes the act of texting was more mind-altering than any drug.
And the problem with text is that it separates you. It makes you feel less responsible.
But no amount of distance can explain her behavior, especially the prosecution's contention that Michelle ordered Conrad back into the truck, says the doctor.
It's very hard to understand where the man says to a friend, listen, I'm feeling pain. I don't want to do this. I'm going to get out of the car. there's no way to seem to make sense of the fact that someone then says, a friend says, get back in the car and kill yourself. This really has a vicious and a very, very malicious quality to it.
No matter how malicious, Dr. Koplowitz says, Michelle really couldn't have convinced Conrad to kill himself if he hadn't already been suicidal.
So while Michelle could not force Conrad to kill himself, she could enhance his risk of killing himself. She could encourage him to complete the act because he was already on his way. And simultaneously, she could have screamed out for help, which might have prevented this deadly outcome.
I want to recover from this, and I feel like I haven't recovered from it yet. I feel like I still have a long way to go.
Clearly, these heartbreaking videos now posted on YouTube show a young man looking for that different outcome, says Dr. Koplowitz.
You expose yourself like this, it says, please help me.
I've created a monster out of myself the past few years because of my depression.
Sadly, Conrad Roy is not alone. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, we lose approximately 4,600 young people between the ages of 10 and 24 to suicide each year. One reason is that teenagers are simply more prone to depression. Another reason, they're more susceptible to peer pressure. Which is why the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why has caused such an uproar. In the show, a teenage girl dies by suicide and leaves 13 recordings to other teens whom she blames.
I think it's one of the most dangerous programs on the air right now for the simple reason that it glamorizes suicide. Unfortunately, suicide's very contagious. We know that teenagers who watch these kind of TV programs are more likely to think about suicide, are more likely to attempt suicide, are more likely to commit suicide.
It appears that Michelle Carter may have been one of those teens influenced by what she saw on TV. Not 13 Reasons Why, but perhaps an episode of Glee. When an actor on Glee died of an overdose in real life, the show wrote his death into the script. Listen to the similarities between what the character Rachel says about the loss of her boyfriend and what Michelle later says about losing Conrad.
I had it all planned out. We would live happily ever after.
It's a good plan. Did you tell him?
I didn't have to. He knew.
Michelle's text to a friend after Conrad's death is almost word for word. I had it all planned out. He knew, too. I didn't have to tell him.
He was my person.
Michelle writes the exact same line. He was my person.
Poor her. Her boyfriend died. They were gonna get married one day, and now she's the grieving girlfriend.
According to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it all boiled down to that starring role as the grieving girlfriend.
The Commonwealth's position, Your Honor, is that she wanted attention.
After 6 days of testimony, closing arguments begin. The defense is up first.
The evidence actually establishes that Conrad Roy caused his own death.
Joe Cataldo reminds the judge that Conrad had attempted suicide before and points to a text Conrad wrote to Michelle.
There's nothing anyone can do for me that's gonna make me want to live. It's very bad to hear, but I want to let you know that truthfully.
The decision to die was Conrad's, not Michelle's, says Cataldo.
He created this situation, Your Honor.
Most importantly, Michelle was nowhere near Conrad when he killed himself.
There's no evidence that Michelle Carter has any physical actions whatsoever in this case with Conrad Roy's decision. It was all of his physical activity.
But prosecutor Katie Rayburn gets the last word.
Although she wasn't physically present, she was in his ear, she was in his mind, she was on the phone, and she was telling him to get back in the car, even though she knew he was going to die. She absolutely knew it was wrong, and she absolutely caused the death of this 18-year-old boy. And I ask you to find her guilty.
Three days after Judge Moniz began his deliberations, two families prepared themselves for his verdict.
Mr. Roy.
For the Carter family, freedom is at stake. For the Roys, it's about justice for their son.
She instructs Mr. Roy to get back into the truck, well knowing of all of the feelings that he has exchanged with her, his ambiguities, his fears, his concerns.
The judge said Carter caused a dangerous environment, and under Massachusetts law, she had a duty to save him.
She called no one. She did not issue a simple additional instruction: get out of the truck. Ms. Carter, please stand. This court, having reviewed the evidence and applied the law thereto, now finds you guilty on the indictment charging you with the involuntary manslaughter of the person Conrad Roy III.
Guilty. A verdict that is groundbreaking in terms of recognizing the deadly power of words, but one that leaves no winners, just heartbreak.
I know we all wish that he had the opportunity to grow up into adulthood, to become a tugboat captain, and to enjoy his future.
Nearly 7 weeks after being convicted, Michelle Carter, who is out on bail, arrives for sentencing, where hostile words greet her. She could face 20 years in prison.
Please remain standing for one moment while you are sworn.
First, Conrad's father and sister recall a life cut short.
Not a day goes by without him being my first thought waking up and my last thought going to bed.
Michelle Carter exploited my son's weaknesses and used him as a pawn in her own well-being. She has not shown any remorse. Where was her humanity?
The prosecutor reads a statement from Conrad's mother, Lynn, who found it too difficult to speak.
I do not know where to begin. I pray that his death will save lives someday.
Lynn wants to make it a crime to encourage suicide.
I pray that a law comes forth so that another mother does not have to endure what I am. I do not believe that another can go on to encourage someone to take their life, and it can be okay.
The prosecution asks that Carter serve 7 to 12 years behind bars.
She has shown no remorse, and in fact, after Conrad's death, she sought attention and sympathy for herself. All she had to do was say, "Get out of the car."
Michelle Carter does not speak at sentencing, but her attorney does and asks for probation.
Ms. Carter does regret what happened. She also sent a letter to the probation department where she accepts responsibility. This is a terrible, terrible tragedy. And she very much regrets this and prays Your Honor's judgment of leniency.
Then Michelle Carter learns her fate.
Ms. Carter, please stand.
He sentences Michelle Carter to 15 months behind bars, a sentence that does not please the defense, who appealed the conviction.
We're asking you, Your Honor, to stay the jail sentence until we can have our day in court.
The judge takes the request seriously, recognizing the significance of this case.
The conviction may be reversible, but the time spent in prison is not.
And then makes a stunning announcement.
That a grant of a stay through the Massachusetts court system only is warranted.
A stay, meaning Michelle Carter would be out on probation, not in jail, while her appeal made its way through the Massachusetts courts. It was a decision that disappointed Lynn Roy and her daughters.
We're just going to honor his life and do it in the best way we can. We want him to be proud of us.
All rise.
In February of 2019, Michelle Carter's conviction was upheld.
Ms. Carter will now be taken into custody.
And she began serving her 15-month sentence. Her lawyers appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The court declined to hear that appeal. In response, her lawyers issued the following statement: "We are deeply disappointed that the Supreme Court has decided not to review Michelle Carter's wrongful conviction." Lynn Roy's focus now is on changing laws. What would you like there to be? What kind of law?
I would love one in honor of him, his name, Conrad's Law.
There's people that love me. I have a great mom.
My son mattered. He matters. Will always matter. Someone that had a family and future and mom and dad. I will never get over him.
A beautiful ballerina, a troubled marriage, a deadly confrontation.
She tells the neighbor, "I shot Doug in self-defense."
Was she genuinely afraid or just trying to get her way?
Underneath those white feathers, she's an evil woman. She's the Black Swan.
48 Hours, Saturday at 10/9 Central on CBS.
Look at, they're madly in love. They are. Look at that.
Nancy Sonnenfeld was found shot in the head.
The police report says she was in a second-floor bedroom. She later died.
We always thought a wonderful couple because they were always laughing.
Attractive and young, and you just couldn't imagine a happier couple.
Kurt Sonnenfeld, he was this debonair, really buff, eloquent young man. You know, everybody who met him liked him. He was a videographer for the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
This is a box of some of my things from FEMA.
My name is Kirk Mitchell. I'm a reporter at the Denver Post. Back in 2001, Kurt went to 9/11 and he videotaped Ground Zero. Nancy Sonnenfeld, she was a star in her own right. She got a well-paying job in an advertising agency. They were a very hip couple. They would go to all the trendy bars in downtown Denver. They went on trips. They went to Amsterdam. They went to South America. They had a beautiful relationship.
January 1st, 2002, New Year's Day. Get a call of a shooting, individual frantically calling the police saying his wife had shot herself. The evidence didn't really match up with what we were being told occurred. We were questioning nearly from the start that this had anything to do with a self-inflicted injury and was more consistent with a homicide.
Kurt Sonnenfeld was arrested and charged with his wife's death, which he insisted was a suicide. But prosecutors suddenly dropped the charge, saying they did not believe they could prove Sonnenfeld guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
After he was released from jail, he took a trip to Argentina.
My world had been completely destroyed, and when Paula and I first met, she was the reward for all the suffering that I had been through.
He had fallen madly in love with this young woman and decided that he was going to stay in Argentina.
2 years later, prosecutors filed new charges against Sonnenfeld, but Sonnenfeld had moved to Argentina, and prosecutors can't get him extradited.
Kurt Sonnenfeld went there so that he didn't have to face trial in Colorado.
Do you believe he's going to get away with murder?
It's possible.
Without a doubt, everybody knew was a suicide.
He is innocent.
There's nothing else to say.
It's pretty incredible what he's pulled off.
My name is Kurt Sonnenfeld. This is my story.
I'm Erin Moriarty. Tonight on 48 Hours, the strange case of Kurt Sonnenfeld. Kurt Sonnenfeld has built a new life for himself in Argentina. Here, he's out of the grasp of U.S. authorities who want him extradited so that they can try him for the murder of his first wife. There are people in Denver, Colorado who think Kurt killed Nancy. What do you say?
Well, they are wrong.
Kurt's staunchest supporter is his second wife, Paula. They met at a restaurant when he arrived in 2003 and married just 40 days later. They're now the parents of twin girls.
You can tell just looking at Kurt, and especially after you talk to him, that he is a beautiful person. Kurt is incapable of even killing a cricket or an ant.
Y aparte no somos una atracción tan interesante.
Paula has been at Kurt's side as he's waged a public campaign to clear his name.
Oh, you were innocent for the USA Justice?
Yes, I'm innocent.
This is from a 2005 TV appearance in Argentina.
On January 1st, 2002, my wife committed suicide with a single gunshot wound to the side of her head. The first policeman that came in said women don't commit suicide. That was when the lies began.
But authorities in Denver believe it's Kurt who's lying. Back in the U.S., Nancy Sonnenfeld's family has been waiting for justice for more than 14 years. Amy Leake is Nancy's sister.
A lot of times when people have somebody murdered in their family, it goes to trial and it's over and it's still painful, but you can move on. We can never have closure.
In the year before Nancy died, the two sisters had grown closer than ever.
We were finally becoming the best friends that I had wanted us to be. She was a strong person. She was very sophisticated. I always thought she was beautiful, and I saw her as being perfect.
Do you remember when your sister met Kurt?
Yes, I do. I remember how excited she was. She said she met her soulmate.
And there's Uncle Kurt. Hi, Uncle Kurt.
We loved Kurt. He became part of our family. He was fun to be with. He was good at telling stories. He was pretty much good at everything he did. He had great charisma.
Kurt traveled extensively as a freelance cameraman for FEMA, filming natural disasters. He also documented weapons storage and disposal sites. His biggest assignment was being sent to Ground Zero as one of two official videographers.
I saw this opening that smoke was pouring out of, and it looked just like the entrance to hell to me.
The footage shot by Kurt and his partner was seen all over the world, and Kurt seemed to revel in the attention he was getting, appearing in magazine articles and posing with celebrities.
I must say that Kurt liked attention, and Kurt liked to be in the limelight.
Leslie Lindbergh is Nancy's cousin. And what did she think of that?
She was proud of him. She loved him.
But there were problems beneath the surface. Leslie says Nancy confided in her that Kurt had a problem with drugs and alcohol, and it was putting a strain on their marriage.
Nancy was very concerned about his drug use. She talked to him about it, and he said that he would stop, but he didn't.
She saw him going downhill, and she was scared he was going to destroy his life.
The last straw came when the couple took a trip to Thailand around Thanksgiving of 2001.
It was the turning point that affected the rest of her life.
Nancy called both her sister and her cousin from Thailand, saying Kurt had disappeared. She said she found him days later in a hotel room with two women doing drugs. Kurt and Nancy returned to the U.S. separately.
I even confronted him. I said, Kurt, what did you do in Thailand? I said, even what kind of drugs did you do? And his response to me was, everything I could get my hands on.
Nancy filed for a separation.
Do you think she intended to actually divorce him?
Mm-hmm. We talked about it, and she did. She was planning on moving on.
This close friend of the couple, who asked us not to show his face, says Kurt was worried about money.
Did Kurt want this divorce?
No. He was angry when they spoke about divorcing would ruin their finances. Also, I think he was worried about the house, because they owned a house together.
Had Nancy cut off some of the credit cards that he had?
Yeah. She was still more the breadwinner of the family and did what she did to try and cut back on his spending.
Despite their problems, Nancy and Kurt spent New Year's Eve together. He says they had arrived home from a party around 1:30 a.m. and just minutes later, Nancy's life came to a violent end.
When I heard the gunshot, I ran into the room where she was. I saw her there, bleeding profusely. I was hysterical. The first thing that I did was to hold her, and then I jumped up and called the police.
We realized really very, very quickly that this was not a suicide. This was a homicide investigation.
Retired Denver detective Jonathan Priest says police were immediately suspicious of Kurt's account.
Anytime there's someone else present when somebody kills themselves, those are characterized as attended suicides. Those bother me.
But why do attended suicides make you uncomfortable?
Attended suicides, people rarely kill themselves in front of other people. Most suicides occur when people are alone.
And there was something else that troubled first responders.
There was a very fine mist of what appeared to be blood staining on his face. The mist staining suggested he was near her at the time of the firearm discharge.
That this was blood spatter at the time the gun went off.
Yes.
Kurt also had a bruise forming around his right eye, possible evidence of a struggle. But most telling to the officers on the scene was the unusual location of Nancy's gunshot wound towards the back of her head. We asked Dr. Amy Martin, who was Denver's assistant medical examiner, to demonstrate.
It was a little bit above the ear hole and behind her ear hole on the right side of her head. So in approximately this area here. Now you've got to angle the gun so that it's going upwards and also a little bit behind.
I mean, this is very awkward.
I don't think I have ever seen a clear self-inflicted gunshot wound in that part of the head.
And what about the fact that it's what you call a non-contact, that it's not up against her head? The gun was not held up against her head.
That's unusual also. It does occur. When I look at her wound, I just would wonder why would you shoot yourself that way? If you're going to shoot yourself, why wouldn't you just shoot yourself in the temple? It's a lot easier to hold the gun to your temple.
Nancy Sonnenfeld died in the hospital later that morning, New Year's Day, 2002. She was 36 years old. Dr. Martin ruled her death a homicide, and police believe Kurt was her killer. When Kurt Sonnenfeld was brought in for questioning, that's when he first learned his wife Nancy had died.
He broke down, started crying, and started stating that his wife had shot herself, and began offering suggestions as to what we as law enforcement should be doing to help prove that she shot herself.
Insisting that detectives test Nancy's hands for gunshot residue.
The investigators are wondering, why is he telling us this? Rather than, my God, my wife has been shot. What happened?
But as the questioning continued, says former Detective John Priest, Kurt admitted the marriage had been in trouble.
She was upset with him over a trip that they had taken to Thailand. She was upset with him for using drugs, according to him.
And Kurt told police it was possible they had fought about his drinking that night, and that Nancy probably saw no hope.
What do you think happened that night?
Maybe she was kicking him out.
Kurt was arrested for first-degree murder within hours of Nancy's death. The physical evidence, thought detectives, just didn't seem consistent with suicide. Using a mannequin and a couch similar to the Sonnenfelds, Priest demonstrates his theory.
You believe Kurt Sonnenfeld shot his wife. Do you believe he was sitting next to her on the couch as he did it?
It would make sense, yes. This is where my radiating spatter is coming from, is this exit wound. So I'm looking at something like this.
Priest also believes Nancy was moved because of the odd position she was found in.
She was leaned back against the back of the couch, and her head was slightly back up against the wall.
All right, if first responders first found her sitting like this, what was the evidence that made you believe she had been moved?
On the end of the couch, over here, very large saturation pattern of blood. That's coming from her head, and then created a very large pool on the floor. She had to be tipped over like this at some point.
Nancy?
Hi.
Investigators believe Kurt tipped Nancy over so he could get up after shooting her. And Priest thinks Nancy lay there bleeding for at least 10 minutes before Kurt propped her back up and called 911.
The pool of blood that's over here, it was created over a good period of time.
That delay, says Priest, gave Kurt time to clean up, and it could explain why gunshot residue was found on Kurt's clothing, but not his hands.
He had more than enough time to wash his hands. The fact that he has gunshot residue on him at all is what's significant, because he claims not to have been in the room when the firearm was discharged.
But if she was murdered, how did gunshot residue get on Nancy's hand? And why is her fingerprint, not Kurt's, on the gun's magazine?
Do you believe that he held the gun in her hand, or do you believe that he actually had the gun in his hand when he shot her?
Well, that I can't tell one way or the other. I can put the gun in the position when it was fired. Whose hand or hands were on the firearm, I can't tell you.
I believe it was suicide, and I believe the evidence showed that.
Kurt's defense attorney, Carrie Thompson, says detectives got it all wrong.
I believe that there was a rush to judgment. There was an assumption this was a homicide.
I mean, how would you describe then the investigation into this case?
Shoddy.
Shoddy?
Yeah, shoddy.
From the police report accounts, she was found sitting up in the middle, approximately here.
Thompson says Nancy fell over on her own after shooting herself.
We're saying that the physical evidence showed that she at one time had slumped over, but never really wasn't moved. Just the top part of her body had slumped over with her head, causing that drip that caused that pool of blood.
She says that when Kurt discovered his wife, he grabbed her and then sat her up on the couch. And that, Thompson says, could account for that blood mist on his face.
She was still breathing, which means she could have sprayed out some blood herself onto him.
She has no blood in her nose or her mouth, so how do we have expirated blood?
This is her graduation from college. She was very proud of that day.
Would you have ever described your sister as suicidal?
No, I never saw her as suicidal at all.
Still, Kurt kept insisting Nancy had been suicidal long before that night.
She was heartbroken. She was depressed. Her marriage was falling apart. But she was a fighter, and she was looking towards the future.
But Kurt's attorney claims that less than a month after Nancy's death, she had gone into the home and personally found a suicide note, evidence she says police overlooked.
I can recall very specifically when I found it. It was right there on the dresser, along with her writings.
Thompson says the note appeared to have been torn from Nancy's diary. It contained a line from a Walt Whitman poem. What indeed is finally beautiful except death and love? To which Nancy added, Kurt, please get help.
Do you believe that is a suicide note?
No. It doesn't read like a suicide note. It doesn't read like the, goodbye cruel world or I can't live like this any longer.
She was asking Kurt to get help. It's not a suicide note. She was just so concerned for him. And she was worried that if he didn't stop with drugs, that possibly he would kill himself.
As Kurt's trial date was approaching, the defense team went on the offensive, doing their own crime scene analysis that seemed to contradict the cops' murder theory.
I think they did a half-assed job, quite frankly.
Then District Attorney Bill Ritter.
It just felt to me like our Denver Police Department Homicide Division still had work to do on this case.
Did that mean that you're having some doubts about whether this was a homicide or a suicide?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question is to say, I believed that we had some significant chance of losing at trial.
Just a little more than 5 months after Nancy's death, Ritter made a highly unusual decision. He dismissed the murder charge against Kurt, but without prejudice, which meant the investigation would continue and charges could be reinstated later.
What was your reaction, Amy, when you heard charges were dropped and he would just go home?
We were upset, of course. I cannot even explain to you the pain that we went through. It all goes back to our faith in God. There's nothing else that would have carried us through.
On June 14, 2002, Kurt Sonnenfeld walked out of jail a free man. The murder charge against Kurt Sonnenfeld had been dropped, but for months after Kurt's release, Denver police continued to dig for new evidence, starting with Kurt's computer.
He says that he was in his office. He said he was in there on his computer when he heard the firearm discharge and went in to check on his wife.
When his computer was checked, did that check out?
No.
A forensic analysis revealed that the computer was last used around 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve. But Kurt's call to 911, saying his wife had just shot herself, didn't come in till hours later, at 1:40 a.m. Then there was a suspicious injury to Nancy's left index fingernail.
So it could be evidence of some kind of struggle.
It could be. She had some bruises on her hands, bruises around her right wrist. Certainly were consistent with some kind of a struggle.
Kurt's DNA was found under that fingernail. More possible evidence of a struggle. And there were also 2 jailhouse informants who say Kurt Sonnenfeld confessed. They came forward separately after Sonnenfeld had been released. John Priest says their statements contained information only Nancy's killer would know.
Like what? Give me an example that really just blew you away. Thought, wow, this guy must have really talked to him.
Positions in the crime scene, where evidence was located, things that there's just no way they would have had that information.
48 Hours tracked down one of those informants. Robert Dreyer has a history of identity theft, fraud, and forgery. He shared a jail cell with Sonnenfeld for 4 days and didn't much like him.
Arrogant, ignorant, self-centered.
Dreyer is a hard man to pin down, but he claims Kurt told him about the night Nancy died.
What happened at the party?
She came outside and she saw him with another girl again and suspected that he was getting high, and she got mad and she left. She said, I'm leaving. He goes, what do you mean you're leaving? She goes, I'm going home and I'm leaving you. She said that was it, and she left and she went home. She walked home.
Without him?
Without him.
Dreyer says when Kurt got home, the couple argued.
He said, you're not gonna leave me. We're gonna be together. we're not getting divorced.
According to Dreyer, Kurt first told him he was out of the room when Nancy committed suicide by shooting herself in the back of the head.
I said, well, she shot herself behind the ear. He said, well, I said, people don't shoot themselves behind the ear, Kurt. Come on, man, you did it, didn't you? And, he said, yeah, he admitted, I did. He said, but the cops will never figure it out, and it'd be your word against mine.
As for why Kurt had no gunshot residue on his hands,
He said, well, that's why they make saran wrap.
Dreyer's statements to police could be devastating if they're true.
Let's be honest, you lied to police all the time. You would use other people's identities. You lie all the time. Why should anybody believe what you're telling now?
You don't have to believe it, but I'm going to tell you, that man told me he killed that woman, his wife. I have no reason to lie. I got nothing for it.
And Dreyer didn't receive any special treatment in return for coming forward. In December 2003, 2 years after Nancy's death, the Denver District Attorney's Office felt it had enough to refile the murder charge. But when police tried to locate Sonnenfeld, he was nowhere to be found.
And it's,
Police considered him a fugitive.
We start looking for him and we find out that he's no longer in the United States.
When authorities decided to rearrest Kurt Sonnenfeld for murder, they didn't know he had moved 6,000 miles away from Denver. He was now living here in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and he wasn't exactly living the life of a man on the run.
He was free to go to Argentina. He met somebody there. The characterization that he fled to Argentina is bull.
I had never hid when I was here. I traveled here with my own passport, with the airline ticket under my name.
In that 2005 interview, Kurt said he simply came here on vacation, intending only to stay a few weeks. But when he met Paula, that changed everything.
What made you fall in love with him?
Because he is so kind. Because he respects all the forms of life.
In Paula, he found a sympathetic ear and the perfect advocate. She's a human rights activist. Kurt declined to talk to us on camera, but Paula spoke on his behalf.
You knew from the very beginning he had been accused of killing his wife.
Yes, he told me everything about him.
And did that put you off at all? Did that make you a little nervous about being around him?
Of course not. It just made me sad because the story is terrible.
Kurt settled into his life in Argentina with Paula. He found work as a freelance cameraman, but their life was interrupted after those charges were refiled in the U.S. Sonnenfeld was suddenly arrested by Interpol.
This could not be happening.
Kurt was taken to Argentina's Devoto prison, while U.S. authorities fought to have him extradited and sent back to Colorado.
Did you fear during that time that he was going to be extradited?
It's always fear, but in this case, I trust in my country.
Kurt was jailed for nearly 7 months, but in March 2005, a judge in Argentina rejected the extradition request. He ordered Sonnenfeld's immediate release. The reason? Colorado has the death penalty.
We were never going to be trying to get the death penalty for Kurt Sonnenfeld.
Then Colorado Governor Bill Owens.
I signed promises that we wouldn't seek the death penalty. These promises were affirmed by the Denver District Attorney and every other party involved.
I was frustrated. I was frustrated that he wasn't going to come back to the States.
But it wasn't over yet. The extradition ruling was appealed. So Kurt launched his own public relations campaign.
A lot of people saying that these charges were a mistake.
And for the first time, Kurt claimed that U.S. authorities are really after him for what he saw at Ground Zero.
Some of my things from FEMA.
And that his life is in danger. When Kurt Sonnenfeld decided to go public with his story in 2005, he turned to Rolando Grania, a popular journalist in Argentina.
What was the story he told you?
He told me that he was one of two cameramen who record the Ground Zero after the plane crash. I can't believe it. Really? He thinks he was a hero, and then he was in jail, and he doesn't know why.
Kurt told Grania his wife Nancy took her own life.
My wife had left a suicide note. She had left a journal of suicidal writings. She had been severely depressed in the months before.
I think Kurt is not a murderer. I'm sure he's not a murderer.
Grania admits he never did his own investigation, but says the fact that charges were dropped is evidence the case must be weak.
What made you believe him?
If someone has killed his wife, it's difficult to understand why he's free.
What's more, Kurt told Grania a chilling tale of being falsely accused and tortured by police in Denver.
One of them put me into a chokehold, while the other one was kicking me repeatedly in the groin, in the stomach. He also had a rubber glove on his hand with a red chemical, and he inserted it up into my nose.
But if that did happen, Kurt's defense attorney never heard about it.
Was he ever beaten at the jail that you're aware of?
I have no information about that.
Kurt also claimed he faced the death penalty.
They told me I was going to be put to death.
It's not true, but for years, Kurt and Paula Sonnenfeld have capitalized on that claim. They've even used their twin daughters to make their case.
Scarlett and Natasha are soldiers in this cause.
It's a poignant and disturbing picture. The girls holding up signs saying, "Don't let the U.S. government assassinate my father." Paula even insisted that her now 9-year-old daughters sit in on our interview.
Are you comfortable with having both of them here during this?
Absolutely. How you hide all this that is happening to us from children?
Despite what she knew would be sensitive subject matter.
You know Kurt's case never had the death penalty. It doesn't even qualify for the death penalty.
Mm-hmm. And what about being in jail forever and dying in a jail? That's the same.
Still, the concern that Kurt could be executed won him support in Argentina.
What is it about Kurt Sonnenfeld's case that made you want to fight for him?
En nuestra Constitución Nacional impide la extradición a países que tienen penas de muerte.
Jorge Richard and his wife Dolores Rivas are prominent human rights activists who run centers that care for poor and orphaned children. Dolores says she's worried about what would happen to Kurt's daughters if he's sent back to the U.S.
Mi preocupación que es destruir una familia.
But what really turned Kurt Sonnenfeld into a cause celeb in Argentina is something that many here in the U.S. might find outrageous. His claim that he saw evidence that the U.S. government played a role in the attack on the World Trade Center. Sonnenfeld claims that's the real reason why authorities are after him.
Do you think that the government knows the crash will come?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure of it.
And according to Sonnenfeld, the U.S. did nothing to stop it. He also claims that it was suspicious that the airplane's flight data recorders, or black boxes, were never recovered.
The black boxes were supposedly vaporized, right? But I have footage of the landing gear, of the seats of the airplane, all of that survived.
Sonnenfeld also suggested that the cleanup at Ground Zero happened too quickly.
Almost from day one, they began taking away all of the metal beams, driving trucks all over the evidence. So they themselves were destroying evidence almost purposely and programmatically from the very first days. It was almost like it was pre-planned.
But what he never told Grania is that he didn't even get to Ground Zero until a full week after the attack. And if he has any concrete evidence to back up his conspiracy theory, he hasn't shown it to anyone.
Kurt is just saying what other people have been saying for 14 years. He doesn't appear to have any proof of anything new. So why would the American government go after him?
Porque él estaba ahí.
Kurt repeated his claims in interviews on Argentinian talk radio, in magazines, and other TV shows.
Del World Trade Center.
And his story has been embraced by those who have little trust in governments.
Cuando le dice a sus superiores lo que ocurrió, cómo él vio las cosas, ahí comienza una persecución sistemática.
Adolfo Perez Esquivel won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1980 after years of imprisonment and torture by Argentina's military junta. He's been trying to help Kurt stay in the country.
Lo que tratamos de hacer es tratar de que se le trate como corresponde.
Kurt and Paula claim they've been spied on and harassed in Argentina by American agents sent to intimidate them. Kurt even wrote a book about his case, published in Spanish only, called El Perseguido, or The Persecuted.
It reads like a spy novel, and it's one of the reasons why journalists in Argentina have compared him to James Bond.
But he's no hero to Kirk Mitchell, the reporter for the Denver Post, who is a CBS News consultant. He's been covering the Kurt Sonnenfeld case since the beginning.
So here, Kurt Sonnenfeld is a murder suspect. In Argentina, what is he?
He is the whistleblower, a brave man who stood up to a corrupt government.
This stuff comes up after his arrest in Argentina when he starts making this. And the prosecutor and I are looking at each other like, where did that come from?
He was a photographer at Ground Zero.
Yes, he was, but he's also an exceptional liar.
He is trying to use that terrible situation to shield himself from murder charges. He's trying to use his children to shield himself from murder charges. When is Kurt Sonnenfeld going to stop? When is he going to come home and account for that night?
More than 14 years have passed since Nancy Sonnenfeld's death, and her family still clings to the hope that Kurt will someday go on trial for murder.
Why does it matter that Kurt come back and go on trial?
It matters because my cousin, who loved him so much, who gave him so much, it matters because my cousin lost her life. She's not there because of him. He needs to atone for that night.
Nancy Sonnenfeld has gotten lost in all of this, says Denver Post reporter Kurt Mitchell.
The way he has couched what has happened to him is he is the victim. It is pretty incredible what he's pulled off.
Mitchell was so intrigued by the case that he wrote a book about it.
You call your book Spin Doctor. Why?
Well, I came to the conclusion that his story was so far-fetched, so far from the truth, that that's what he's become. You know, to me, it's astonishing that it's being believed.
Is Kurt Sonnenfeld gaming the system?
Kurt Sonnenfeld is definitely gaming the system, though someday, hopefully, that game may run out.
Former Colorado Governor Bill Owens says Sonnenfeld has come up with a novel way to avoid prosecution by cleverly spinning the horror of 9/11 to his own advantage.
There are a lot of people around the world who want to believe the worst about our country. And when he says, look, I'm a victim, intelligence agencies are after me, there are a lot of victims in this case. Not one of them is Kurt Sonnenfeld.
Nancy's family continued to live in limbo as Kurt's case dragged on through the Argentine courts. In 2014, it landed on President Cristina Kirchner's desk.
Well, there's politics that get wrapped up in these cases. The current president of Argentina comes from a party that was very antagonistic towards the U.S.
A fact that Kurt and Paula seem to be counting on.
I know that my government is going to protect us. We will fight for Kurt, and we are not alone.
And Paula may have been right. In 2015, during the final weeks of her presidency, Kirchner's administration ruled that Kurt Sonnenfeld will not be extradited, stating that to do so would be a violation of human rights.
Human rights? What about my cousin? What about her human rights?
I absolutely believe it's political. I believe that Mr. Sonnenfeld has built an aura as a martyr, as a hero, and I think the politics of Argentina have protected him from a murder charge.
Kurt and Paula wouldn't comment to us, but shortly after the ruling, Paula tweeted, "We're living the first day of the rest of our lives." Has the murder suspect outsmarted the U.S. government? It certainly looks that way. But Nancy's cousin is determined Kurt will never find peace.
Lies, the manipulations, they go on, and it will come out. And I will be alive to see it, even if I have to go to Argentina. I will look that man in the eye again, just so that he knows I am still alive. And I am here for my cousin. And I will never let this die.
Bye.
"48 Hours. Don't miss an episode."
There's definitely mysteries involved in this case.
It was a cold Halloween morning, even had some snow on the ground. The call came out at 5:37 in the morning.
My wife shot herself.
Colby Trickle had called our dispatch. He met us on the porch.
Exactly, where's the house?
It's right here. It's this one with red and white.
Did he seem upset?
I mean, there were tears coming down, and it was hard to understand, was choked up. We go up to the door, start making announcements inside.
Hayes Police Department.
Looking to my left is when I first see Kristen. I kind of focused in on her jaw moving. I could see the movement of her jaw.
We've got a pulse. We're going to start CPR.
Do you have a pulse?
Yeah. Yep.
So she was still alive.
We were hopeful.
Could she be saved?
No.
After you did your autopsy, how did you rule on Kristen Trickle's death? Homicide or suicide?
Suicide.
Suicide.
The victim's family in this, right out of the gate, was just adamant that this was not a suicide.
The scene was kind of unusual. We had a female with a large weapon laying in bed, and it's not common to see that.
You have a replica or a very similar type of gun. Can you show it to me?
Sure.
How large? Oh,
It's pretty hefty, as you can tell. It's a hand
I'm
cannon.
a little surprised.
Yeah, it's awkward to maneuver, not something you'd easily turn on yourself.
We had evidence that led us to believe that Colby Trickle had killed his wife.
I do not believe he did it. I was Colby Trickle's defense attorney. When he called 911, she was still showing signs of life. Had he intended to murder her, it just seems odd that he would call immediately. I think it's very possible that Kristen Trickle picked up a gun that night in great anguish and ended her life.
A professional came in and looked at the life of Kristen, dug into basically every aspect of her life, got into who Kristen was prior to her death.
So basically, this is a psychological autopsy trying to figure out the state of mind of a person who died. That's difficult to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And had this ever been done in the state of Kansas before?
Never in a criminal case, no.
Sergeant Brandon Hauptman of the Hayes Police Department vividly remembers the dark, cold Halloween morning as he arrived at Kristen Trickle's home.
The bedroom she was in is actually this window on the left.
Oh, the bedroom's right there.
Yeah, that's the bedroom right there.
And the moment he found the 26-year-old near death in bed.
I could see the firearm. From what I could tell initially, a large caliber revolver, and laying across her abdomen about like this.
How was she dressed?
Almost fully undressed. She was just wearing underwear.
After Kristen showed signs of life, the sergeant quickly moved the revolver away from her and carried Kristen into the living room for CPR.
The only injury that I could see at that point was the entrance wound.
And where was that entrance wound?
Underneath her chin here.
There was nothing the first responders could do for Kristen.
I went out to Colby on the porch and told him that she had died.
Hello. My name's Brandon Hauptman. I'm the sergeant working today.
Hauptman's body camera was only recording audio that day.
She died. And I'm so sorry.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Sergeant Hauptman says he asked Kristen's husband, Colby, to go to the police station so he could tell investigators what happened. Did he seem to be cooperative?
He was, yep. Agreed to go up. We got him some shoes.
At the station, Colby said that hours earlier, Kristen had come home from Walmart, where she worked in the gardening center, and the couple had played video games. He went to bed before his wife, he said, and woke up to his ears ringing. And then found Kristen lying next to him with a gunshot wound to her head.
I ran up to her, and she was just looking at me.
Then what did you do?
I ran over to my phone, and I called 911.
Colby told investigators that while he was on the phone with 911, he checked Kristen's pulse but felt nothing, and then picked the revolver off her body.
Where was the gun at?
It was laying by her neck. I pulled it back.
What did you do with the gun?
For a moment, he says he thought about taking his own life.
I started to put bullets in my head. But I was on the phone. They said they were saying
sending people so I thought maybe they can help her.
While Colby Trickle was still at the station, Kristen's Aunt Delynn and Uncle Brant Rice, a local pastor, found out Kristen had died.
I got a call from my mom, and worst phone call ever to get. She said, Kristen's dead. She's been shot. And it was just awful. I said, Mom, that can't be right. That can't be right. That doesn't even make sense.
But more baffling was that Colby had said Kristen's death was a suicide. What did you tell investigators initially? We just don't think she would do this?
Oh, 100%. I said, there's no way of all the people I know in this world, the last person that I would ever think would take their own life would be Kristen because of the joy she has.
It's so out of character to Kristen and how she solves problems. She's not a runner from problems.
Delynn and Brant Rice say Kristen's family and her 2 dogs meant the world to her.
The thought of her hurting herself in any way.
Or anyone.
Or anyone is so foreign. She would never take her life and not tie up loose ends with her family, make sure her dogs had somewhere to go.
And they believe they knew her better than just about anyone else. They had watched her grow up.
It is hard to find a photograph she is not smiling just fully.
She had had that smile even though Delynn and Brant say Kristen had a tough childhood. Her mother left her and her father when Kristen was 2 years old. When she was 17, Kristen moved in with her aunt and uncle and their 3 kids. Delynn and Brant say she thrived.
She loved being with our family. She loved the peace in our home.
Chloe is Brant and Delynn's daughter.
Kristen was my older sister figure in my life, and I really looked up to her, and she was just like always there to make me smile and feel important.
The family remembers when Kristen met Colby. They were both 18 years old.
Colby attended our church. Colby, for a time, was on the worship team at our church. They are the band that plays the worship music during our services. He wowed her with his guitar playing abilities, songs that he had written.
As years went on, I quickly grew.
But just 5 years later, Kristen was dead, and Colby was saying she took her own life. Coroner Lyle Nordhook examined the scene, and looking at the wound, he believed the revolver was in close range to her chin when it was fired. And in Nordhook's experience, that was not unusual for a self-inflicted gunshot wound. How would you believe the revolver was being held?
Close to the chin and parallel to the body.
Like this?
Yeah.
But Detective J.B. Burkholder had also been called to the house.
We respond to suicides. They happen several times a year.
And to him, this didn't seem like suicide.
Having a female with a gunshot wound, especially to the head, was unusual for us.
Why? Why is that more unusual for women, you think?
For women, they're a little bit more concerned about looks, even after death, and so they think about that.
And there was something else.
When I got there, I remember an alarm going off.
Kristen's cell phone alarm is heard repeatedly on audio recorded by first responders.
I think I actually silenced it. She had set an alarm to get up, to get ready for work, and had plans for that day. A lot of times individuals who are thinking about suicide, they're not setting alarms. It doesn't matter when they get up. There was candy set out in the kitchen area. She and Colby had planned for Halloween to go on as it normally would with trick-or-treating.
And nothing troubled him more than that weapon found at the scene. Detective Burkholder wasn't sure Kristen was the one who fired it.
The gun was a full-size .357 revolver, a large caliber weapon, approximately 11 to 12 inches. It can be hard to handle. And so being able to place that gun under your chin and discharge that firearm just didn't seem very likely for a smaller female in what was described as a dark bedroom. This wasn't an open and shut suicide case. There was questions.
After his wife Kristen died in the early morning hours on Halloween, Colby Trickle spoke with investigators for more than 11 hours.
Hello. What's your name? Colby. Colby?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry for it.
He was asked over and over again to recount the events of the night before.
Do you guys have any fights, anything like that yesterday?
No.
Colby also told investigators about his job with the U.S. military as part of human intelligence.
There's some interesting places they send you with being intel, but they sent me to Middle East and they sent me down into Central America.
Sounds like some movie stuff right there.
First impressions of Colby Trickle is that he was a guy who was in the military. He had a decorated past of overseas tours. And then also Colby Trickle was a guy who loved his wife.
But Detective J.B. Burkholder says he had questions about Colby's account of the morning Kristen died. After finding Kristen, Colby says he called 911, and as he later told police, he picked up the gun and thought about ending his life. What troubled Burkholder is where Colby put the gun after he changed his mind, back on Kristen's stomach.
I put it back down and ran outside.
It's just very odd. It doesn't seem as though if I'm calling 911, if my wife's dying on the bed, that I would place the gun back down on her body.
Colby was asked if there was any life insurance on Kristen.
I have some on me from military, but that's it.
No insurance on Kristen, he said. And then was asked if he had anything to do with Kristen's death.
Did you in fact kill her?
No.
Colby left the police station that day, but first responder Sergeant Hauptman was increasingly suspicious about Colby's actions at the scene. He wondered why Colby didn't demand to be by Kristen's side as they tried to save her life.
Your wife's inside, and here she is, bleeding out, dying, and you're on the porch.
While first responders were administering CPR, Colby was chatting with officers about video games. That conversation was recorded by a police body cam.
What kind of games do you guys like to play? Counter-Strike?
Everything from Call of Duty to Minecraft.
That day, as investigators got a search warrant for Colby's cell phone, an autopsy for Kristen Trickle was underway. At the scene, Coroner Lyle Nordhook, who suspected suicide, had looked for any evidence that someone else was involved, like signs of a struggle. Were there any signs of defensive wounds or any signs that she had fought with anyone before she died?
No, there were.
Coroner Nordhook says he also examined Kristen's body for signs of past physical abuse.
Typically, if there's a series of progressive injuries over a period of time, so you can tell that they've been beating on each other. In this case, I wasn't really seeing that. So I'm going, well, I have to take the husband's statement at word value that he was there and the gun went off and she is dead.
Nordhook says 3 days after Kristen's death, based on the information he had at the time, he determined that the manner of death was a suicide. But Kristen's Uncle Brant and Aunt DeLynn say the more they learned about the facts of the case, the more questions they had.
When I heard that it was a gun, there's no way. We knew Kristen was scared of guns. Kristen was also very, very private in her body, very modest. When I found out she was not dressed, that was shocking to me.
Reflecting on Kristen's relationship with Colby, Brant and DeLynn told authorities that for years they were bothered by what they say was Colby's controlling behavior.
If she didn't immediately respond to a text or wasn't able to answer her phone, he would get very frustrated with her. He wanted her at his beck and call.
At the time, the Rices say they told Kristen they had serious concerns about Colby.
We know that She was not happy with us. I believe that he convinced her that we were against her, and therefore she separated herself somewhat.
Kristen decided to marry Colby and eventually moved almost 300 miles away to Kansas City. But life for the couple was difficult, says Brandt. Colby enlisted with the Army Reserve and did odd jobs. Kristen worked at a vet clinic. Money was tight. In early 2019, the couple moved back to the Hayes area, and the Rices say Kristen was coming to their church again.
Oh, we were thrilled.
We were so thrilled to reconnect with Kristen, and it was just like it was when she lived in our home.
Yeah.
And in the months before her death, they say, she was making plans to launch her pet boarding business.
She had picked out a little house that's south of town and has a little barn behind it, and she wanted to turn the little barn into the boarding area.
To the Rice family, Kristen seemed happy and excited for her future. But after her death, Brandt and DeLim wondered about Colby. Was Colby capable of murder? As investigators began digging into Colby's story, they pored over the data in his cell phone.
There's several, I guess 2 big aha moments.
They discovered Colby had been exchanging flirtatious Snapchat messages with another woman.
He had conversations with her, which would be described as a sexting conversation.
Also on that cell phone, according to Detective J.B. Burkholder, was evidence that contradicted what Colby had first told investigators when asked about life insurance on his wife.
I have some on me from military, but that's it.
Cell phone data revealed that not only was Colby aware Kristen was covered by a life insurance policy called SGLI for spouses of military members, in the days before her death, they say, he Googled the amount the policy would pay out.
Detective Ridgway was able to find what I believe was a screenshot of a search that he had conducted 10 days prior to Kristen's death, asking what his spouse's life insurance would be.
On November 4th, 2019, investigators asked Colby to return for more questioning.
Approximately 10 days ago, you looked up a life insurance issue?
When? I never did.
You did.
I never did it. If I would die?
No, if your spouse died.
Colby, who agreed to talk without a lawyer, suggested that Kristen might have done the search herself on his phone.
We always gave each other access to each other's phones and stuff.
Investigators also asked Colby about his online relationship. Colby admitted that it had started a few months prior to his wife's death, after he met the woman on a group chat while playing video games.
Did Kristen find out about that relationship? Not that I know of.
Colby told them the relationship was a virtual one, that he had never actually met the woman. But investigators discovered he had been texting with her just hours after Kristen's death, while he was still at the police station.
I guess to his credit, he said that he was busy and couldn't talk right now, but then he said, I wish I could.
Erin Cunningham is Assistant Ellis County Attorney.
Which is probably the last thing that you should say to a woman you're having an online affair with when you're being investigated about your wife's death.
When Colby Trickle left the police station after his second interview, Detective Burkholder checked out his claim that Kristen had used his phone to research life insurance policies.
We were able to get surveillance video from the Walmart store.
What they discovered was that Kristen was at work at Walmart at the time the cell phone search was made.
We were able to see that she didn't have access to a phone.
The inconsistencies in Colby's statements kept piling up, says Burkholder, like this one.
She keeps the revolver on her side.
Colby had said Kristen had kept the .357 revolver by her side of the bed, but that didn't seem to line up with what Burkholder saw at the scene.
When we looked at the scene, we saw multiple firearms on what was described as Colby's side of the bed.
There were also photos of the couple's bedroom found on Colby's phone.
So this picture was taken, I believe, a month prior to Kristen's death. You see a large framed revolver on the bed where Colby Trickles described as being his.
And do you think that's the .357?
That's the only .357 in the house that we found. That tells me that this was Colby's gun.
Still, the investigation stalled. You have all these investigators who are uncovering more and more evidence that there's something really wrong with this case. And you've got the coroner who calls this a suicide. I mean, that's a problem, isn't it?
It is and it isn't. And
it was initially, wasn't it?
Sure. Well, certainly, as far as their ability to investigate as efficiently as they normally would.
Cunningham says that the coroner's determination that Kristen had died by suicide limited the investigators' ability to obtain search warrants.
There was still elements of the investigation law enforcement wanted to follow up on.
In the winter of 2020, Colby began collecting payouts from two insurance policies, $23,000 from Walmart and $100,000 from the U.S. military. Meanwhile, investigators continued to learn more about his time in the military.
He was a reserve officer in the military that was never deployed.
Wait a minute. So he was never deployed to Central America?
He had no overseas deployments that were told to us by the United States military.
And he had no experience talking to informants as part of his job as an intelligence analyst.
Right.
But even with what looked like blatant lies and an apparent motive to kill his wife, police didn't arrest Colby. So in the year after Kristen's death, authorities watched as Colby Trickle went on with his life.
Maybe I'm foolish and maybe...
It is very frustrating to me. I would run into him in public.
Playing music at a restaurant in town.
It made my skin crawl.
So whatever storm you're in, keep pushing forward.
Posting Facebook self-help videos.
Get to the outside where you're free and enjoy life.
But then, nearly 2 years after Kristen's death, a newly elected county attorney decided to try something very new that he thought could put Colby away for life.
Go behind the scenes with the 48 Hours Postmortem Podcast.
County Attorney Robert Anderson was just days into his new job in January of 2021 when Assistant County Attorney Erin Cunningham and Detective J.B. Burkholder pulled him aside.
JB and I both cornered him and said, this is something that's clearly a homicide. Help us to get the nails put in this coffin.
After reviewing the file, Anderson believed that the coroner got it wrong and that this was a homicide. On July 14, 2021, he charged Colby Trickle with the murder of his wife, Kristen.
Certainly, the insurance money provides motive. In addition, being in bed next to your husband, naked, shooting oneself in the face, after having set alarms to get up the next day for work, after setting out candy for Halloween, these circumstances don't point to a woman who was planning a suicide.
Hey, can I get you to step out of the car and come to the back of the car with me? Sure.
When police arrested Colby, he didn't seem surprised.
Detectives, I have some questions for you. Sure. Place you under arrest. You turn around, put your hands behind your back.
Sure.
And denied killing Kristen.
I didn't do it, and I know many people don't believe that, and I respect that.
I believe him.
You don't believe that he would shoot his wife?
I do not.
Cassie Ziegler is one of Colby Trickle's defense attorneys.
He cares about his spiritual life. He's a devoted Christian. I don't see that in him, this ability to connive and plan all of this.
Instead, she says Kristen had suffered from depression since childhood.
I think that Kristen dealt with a lot more pain in her life than people acknowledged. I don't think there's any worse rejection in life than to be rejected by your biological mother. At an early age, that's exactly what happened.
Colby's attorney felt confident. Going into the trial, the coroner was standing by his assessment that Kristen's death was a suicide.
You had the ability, you had the power to change this determination if you wanted to prior to trial.
Yes.
You could have, but you didn't.
If I've made a determination, am I going to change it to homicide based on an accusation before a court proceeding? No.
So County Attorney Anderson knew he had to do something to convince a jury that Kristen didn't die by suicide. And that's when he pursued a different type of autopsy, a psychological one, an autopsy of the mind. And to conduct it, Anderson hired a forensic psychologist, Dr. Ashley Christensen. Her job? To determine Kristen's state of mind leading up to her death.
Being unable to speak with them because they're, of course, no longer here, they have to speak with their family, their friends, their coworkers. They review any social media, diaries, journals, anything that they can.
Christensen's conclusions would eventually take center stage at Colby Trickle's trial. It was September 2023.
Members of the jury.
And Prosecutor Cunningham began by telling the jury that Kristen Trickle was murdered for the oldest reasons in the world.
This case is as simple as A, B, C. A, an affair. B, a breakdown of control. And C, cold hard cash.
Colby's attorney disputed that.
You may proceed whenever you're ready, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cassie Ziegler says Colby's alleged affair was really just an online flirtation.
I don't think there was a plan to have this long-term intimate affair.
She also denies that Colby plotted to kill Kristen for cash. And about that Google search into the life insurance payout, Ziegler says Colby doesn't remember doing that search. But she acknowledges he had been filling out paperwork around that time for his own military life insurance. And if he did do it, maybe that's why.
It's just a coincidence that this is happening days before his wife dies.
Unfortunately so, yeah. Bad timing.
At trial, the jury learned that Colby Trickle had not only collected more than $120,000 from 2 life insurance policies on his wife, he had already gone through it.
I think he had spent all of the money in approximately 8 months.
What did he spend the money on? When Detective J.B. Burkholder took the stand, he was asked to describe one expenditure in particular.
There's a $1,942 payment to True Touch Dolls. Were you able to determine what that was?
This is a company that made and manufactures and distributes life-size sex dolls.
Colby's attorney says Colby was having trouble sleeping alone and was quite open about the purchase.
He went and talked to his mother about it. If you're gonna buy if you're gonna buy a sex toy, a grown man's not gonna go talk to his mother about this sex doll he's gonna buy.
What was your reaction to that?
Disgusted. Just disgusted.
It was described at trial that he needed this doll for comfort.
For comfort and warmth. We have electric blankets that we use for that.
When Brant Rice took the stand, he told the jury that his niece had become more assertive in her relationship with her husband in the months before her death.
I feel that she had really begun to stand up for herself. We were proud of her for that.
And there were texts, says Cunningham, that seemed to support that Colby feared he was losing control over Kristen. On April 8, 2019, when Colby texted that Kristen seemed different and pushy with things, she responded,
I'm just deciding to stick up for myself. Just like you, I'm taking control of the situation.
And then prosecutors called their star witness, Dr. Ashley Christensen.
Around the time of her death, there was a lot of data suggesting that she had a lot of hope.
Dr. Christensen testified that Kristen talked to family members about future plans and seemed optimistic.
She wanted to open her own either pet boarding or dog grooming business and had discussed this goal for opening her business.
But Christensen also testified that she interviewed Colby for her report, and he offered what sounded like a reason why Kristen might have been stressed. He told the doctor Kristen knew about his online relationship with that other woman.
He reported that they had last discussed that relationship the week of her death.
But remember, in his police interview, Colby had told investigators that he didn't think Kristen knew.
When did Kristen find out about that relationship? Not that I know of.
So which is it? Did she know or she didn't know?
I believe she knew.
Whether or not Kristen knew, Dr. Christensen told the jury she believed that at the time of her death, Kristen was at a low risk for suicide.
It is my opinion that it is relatively less likely that her death was the result of suicide.
I love those words, relatively less likely. That doesn't tell me anything. We can't know the mind of someone who's going to end their life.
Defense attorney Ziegler does not think the report should have been allowed in as evidence. She points out that Dr. Christensen, who never met Kristen Trickle, did interviews and prepared her report nearly 2 years after Kristen's death. And Ziegler believes people's memories change over time.
That is a long time to go back and talk to people about Kristen.
But prosecutors thought there was another piece of evidence that could bring them a guilty verdict.
What do you think is the most powerful evidence against Colby Trickle? Chat now with the 48 Hours team on Facebook and X.
Nearly 4 years have passed since Kristen Trickle died from a gunshot wound to her head.
How would you describe the last 4 years?
Hellish.
On September 22nd, 2023, it was Colby Trickle's last chance to convince a jury that he had nothing to do with his wife's death. He decided not to testify, but his attorney Cassie Ziegler called his mother, Tina Kreitzer, to the stand.
Is it fair to say that Kristen was pretty reserved at first when you met her? Yeah, very to herself.
Kreitzer described her daughter-in-law as a woman who rarely revealed her feelings.
Couldn't read her, very emotionless.
It's a drastically different Kristen, says attorney Ziegler, than the one her family describes.
By their explanation, just the happiest, most joyful person, never stops smiling. She almost is walking on water. I mean, when the reality is we have no idea how she's really feeling. Now you find out he's having an emotional relationship with someone else online. I can imagine that being the last straw.
But in his final argument to the jurors, prosecutor Erin Cunningham shows them the weapon that killed Kristen and says she couldn't have fired it.
Members of the jury, this doesn't add up. And the state is going to demonstrate it to you.
Prosecutor Cunningham showed us with a similar gun.
If you look at the autopsy photos, you see a little divot at the 3 o'clock mark, which is believed by the coroner to be the sight imprint of the gun.
See that?
And I knew Kristen was right-handed. The natural way a right-handed person would hold a gun to their head for suicide would be something like this, or maybe something like this, putting the sight mark somewhere between 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So for the sight mark to have wound up over at the 3 o'clock angle would be very unnatural.
Cunningham showed us how he believes Colby Trickle shot his wife while she slept next to him.
It would be consistent with the placement of the sight mark that he would have grabbed the gun from his nightstand, rolled over in bed, and placed the gun just underneath her chin and pulled the trigger.
So if you keep it here, then this then would explain
Correct.
why it appears on her neck here. As the case went to the jury, Ziegler had hoped that they would still have too many doubts. How significant is it, the fact that the coroner went to trial still saying it was a suicide when the prosecutors are saying it's a homicide?
Yeah, it's huge. We have to show doubt that's reasonable. And I think there's plenty of that.
That's what Kristen's family feared as well.
All they have to do is convince one of those 12 that they have a reasonable doubt. What are we going to do if he walks out a free man?
They don't have to wait long. Less than 2 hours later, there was a verdict.
Count one, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of premeditated murder in the first degree of Kristen Trickle.
Colby Trickle was found guilty for first-degree premeditated murder and interference with law enforcement, falsely reporting information. What do you remember of the verdict? What did you hear?
Just feeling like I could breathe.
Yeah.
Just feeling a breath.
The relief for safety for our family.
I feel like we got our life back.
Yeah.
After the verdict, we spoke with coroner Lyle Nordhook, who said he planned to amend Kristen Trickle's death certificate to now read homicide. He admitted he had decided on suicide before talking to anyone in Kristen's family or seeing the weapon used to kill her. But I'm a little surprised. Wouldn't that have been important for you to make, to know the size of the weapon, to be able to make your death investigation determination?
The police should have all that information, and it's usually correlated with the pathologist, but it wasn't in this case.
The fact that he had done research on insurance, were you aware of that?
No.
Were you aware that they found evidence that he was having an online affair?
No, they didn't share that with me either.
If you had known that, would you have left that as suicide?
No.
Investigators acknowledge they should have done a better job keeping him informed. On November 20th, 2023, Colby Trickle returned to court for sentencing, admitting only that he could have been a better husband.
Something that I cannot apologize for is harming Kristen that morning, because I cannot apologize for what I didn't do. Regardless of that fact, I still take partial blame for that morning. I always wonder if she would still be here had I been a better husband.
Judge Glenn Braun sentenced Colby Trickle.
The court will sentence you to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 50 years.
With Colby Trickle in prison, the Rices say their family is finally beginning to grieve the young woman gone way too soon.
Sometimes I think about how
Kristen's cousin Chloe, who grew up with Kristen, wrote a song for her.
we'd never say goodbye.
How often do you think about Kristen?
All the time. Every day.
Every day. You know, we drive by that little house.
The house where Kristen one day hoped to start her dream business. You call it Kristen's house,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
She had a future. She had found her faith again.
When you were with her, you felt loved, a beautiful heart, a gentle, gentle spirit. And she was just an amazing girl.
I never had the chance, so now I'm telling you goodbye.
New CBS Next. A young girl found dead in a swamp.
Did this look like an accident or something else? Something entirely different.
A decades-old mystery with a surprising answer.
Oh no. Oh no. I never would have guessed how this ended.
48 Hours is all new. CBS Next and streaming on Paramount Plus.